Okay.
We might want to get some water on the side too, or ask her.
Yeah, that would definitely be good. Got lettuce in my teeth. There we go. My name is Chris Era, and I am an independent wrestler. I currently live in the East Coast, but I started out in the Midwest. I found a wrestling school shortly after I graduated high school. And at the time, it was the only thing I'd ever known about independent wrestling. I'd never seen anything. I went to a show and found out that there was a school about a half hour away. So I started training there. And you really can't call it training looking back on it now. But, you know, it broke me in. I got to do... You know, I started training, what was it, either July or August of '98, and I had my first match in September. And then from there, I just met some local people. I met some people on the internet and ended up getting booked on other shows. And from there, it's just kind of been like a snowball. You know, you meet people here, you meet people there, and you get booked on bigger shows, you meet bigger people. Then you get booked on bigger shows, you meet bigger people. So I've really been fortunate. I started doing shows in the Pittsburgh area thanks to former WWF Tag Team Champion Samu. He was booking for a group out there, and I met him on a show in Cleveland, actually. So when I was doing these shows in Pittsburgh, they were getting released overseas for distribution for, you know, network TV. I don't really know what it was, but I got contacted by a guy that did commentary in Germany, and he put me in contact with some of the people that ended up bringing me to Germany. So I created basically a little fan base for myself over there, and then 2 years later they started bringing me back, and I've been going back regularly ever since. So that's definitely helped things. Every now and again I'll have like a 2-week, a 4-week tour of Europe where I get to go through all the different countries, whether it be Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, the Netherlands, France. I get to do all those countries. So fortunately, thanks to wrestling, I've been able to, you know, travel a good portion of the world.
What's your opinion as a wrestler about the internet, and how do you think that affects the business?
It is definitely a double-edged sword, because I can see a lot of the good qualities as far as you know, getting the product out there. It's just another form of advertisement. However, the internet's also smartened fans up to the extent where a lot of them think they know more than most of the wrestlers, which isn't true, and it offends a lot of people, and you know, they end up... You know, there's some cases. There's some internet fans that are cool, and there's some that are obnoxious. A lot of people think internet's really hurt wrestling. I think it has to a degree, but I think it's helped out quite a bit, because a lot of these independent shows that are around now, fans wouldn't really know about them if it wasn't for the internet. Because I know personally of a lot of different promoters that aren't very good at promoting their shows, and all they do is promote their shows on the internet, and you know, that's how they get their name. You know, internet kind of helps them and stabs them in the back sometimes. So,
what is your opinion about backyard wrestling?
I really don't really have an opinion either way. You know, if you're just having fun and, you know, you're just goofing around, whatever, I don't see a problem with it. You know, it hasn't really been labeled backyard wrestling, but people have been doing that for years. You know, a lot of people, when they're kids, they roll around with their friends and play, you know, and joke around. If you love wrestling and you want to have fun, I don't really see a problem with it. However, there are certain degrees that people certain extremes that the people cross to, and ends up, you know, people get hurt, you know, people do stupid things, but that's just, I think you have extremes in everything. You know, you have guys that, you know, play backyard football or backyard baseball, and then you have guys that, you know, go out and they fight people all the time. So it's just different degrees. You know, I think generally it's an okay thing, but there's definitely a point where you cross the line and go too far, and that's what a lot of people do today.
What's your dream as a pro wrestler? Is there anything in particular that you want to accomplish?
I just want to wrestle for a living. I want to continue to be a wrestler. You know, whether that be under contract with WWE, or, you know, maybe under contract to a promotion in Japan where you get to go over, you know, 6 times a year. You know, that would be really nice. I like traveling. I've been fortunate enough to end up as a trainer at a wrestling school on the East Coast, and I like doing that. I like helping people. So as long as I'm in the business doing something, whether it be wrestling, training, teaching here or there, I just love the business, and I always want to be a part of it.
What promotion in Japan did you wrestle? Here's the waitress.
There we go. It's a different waitress.
Who had the baby back?
Yeah.
You guys filming something out here?
Mm-hmm.
Just people walking by?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Could I have another strawberry lemonade when you get a chance, please? Thank you.
Could I also get a iced tea too? And water if you could.
Yeah.
2 water, strawberry lemonade, and iced tea? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Can I take that out of the way for you? Or?
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Thank you. I left off asking you about what's it like wrestling in Japan, and how's that different from here?
In Japan, professional wrestling is viewed more like a national sport. It's really has the support of like the people in the country. You pick up a newspaper, flip through, you'll see pro wrestling pictures, results. Over here, wrestling's kind of ridiculed because a lot of people, feel that, wrestling in its inception was, everybody was, it was secretive, it was fake, it wasn't fake, it was fake, it wasn't fake. So people really, I guess were insulted by that, and therefore since then have always ridiculed wrestling. It's, it's a phony sport, a fake sport. But over there, it's really respected, and the culture as a whole is more respectful. Like the people appear very polite, and the style-wise, it's definitely more of like it's less of a show. Like I actually had it explained to me one time that in Mexico, wrestling is a show. In Japan, wrestling is a sport, and in America, it's a mixture of show and sport. Nowadays, if you watch TV, it's definitely more of a show than anything else. However, when it comes down to it, you still see quite a bit of actual wrestling. I had a great time in Japan. I'd really love to go back. It was a really awesome experience. The fans were just very respectful. I can't really say that enough. It was a really great experience.
What promotion did you wrestle for there, and who did you wrestle against?
I wrestled for Big Japan, which is actually a smaller independent group. They're known for their hardcore, their death matches and whatnot. And one of my friends is a deathmatch wrestler. His name's Madman Pondo. I've known him since January of '99, so I've known him quite a while. And he's always looked after me, and he actually got me booked on the tour. So, I went along. I didn't have to participate in any death matches. I had several, straight-up wrestling matches. I wrestled Shadow WX, who is a hardcore guy, but we had a straight-up wrestling match. I wrestled Daisuke Sekimoto, Ryuji Ito, and a guy that actually wrestled for WWF prior to this, Men's Teo. He was a member of Kai and Tai, along with Taka Michinoku, Funaki, and Dick Togo.
When you were a kid, like, what was your... Just get a drink.
Okay. You alright?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm sorry, you were squinting.
Now the sun, we're in contact, so it's like...
I got you.
Sorry, am I like in your way?
No problem.
Do you want me to take this?
Yeah, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Do you want me to just throw that in there?
Yeah, that's cool.
Just throw it.
Thank you.
Do you want me to put that extra sauce on top, or?
Yeah. Actually, don't worry about it. That's cool. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are you sure?
No, I'll be fine. Thanks.
Okay, you asked when I was a kid.
Yeah. When you were a kid, like, what was wrestling like for you?
My mom used to take me to wrestling when I was little. There's a venue called Hera Arena in Dayton, Ohio, and once a month, WWF would have a house show there, and she used to take me every month, and I used to watch Superstars and Wrestling Challenge on television and NWA Worldwide. I used to tape it all the time, and I followed it religiously. I got the wrestling magazines, I got the toys. It was just such a larger-than-life thing. Like, I just was so amazed. I was enamored with professional wrestling. And looking back on it, it's kind of embarrassing, but the guys that I liked The Ultimate Warrior. He was my favorite wrestler. He was strong. He was huge. He did some power moves. He had face paint. He was real colorful. He ran to the ring. When I was a kid, I thought, I was very excited by that. Looking back on it, I could see that he wasn't necessarily a very good wrestler. He was a good performer, but not necessarily a good wrestler. And I strive to be the best wrestler as possible. So I was just really attracted to like the show version of it. All the different colorful characters. It was very much like a live action comic book to me. And I may not have been really huge into comic books at the time, but wrestling was like a fantasy world combined with sport that just really it hooked me in. And once I got into high school, I fell out of wrestling. I didn't watch it for a while, but when I was a senior, I started watching it again, and then shortly after that was when I found a place to train. So it's kind of funny how things work out.
Could you just say a sentence really quick? I'll ask you just to check your audio level. Could you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into the business?
Sure, no problem. One moment. My name is Chris Hero. I'm an independent wrestler originally from the Midwest. Now I live in the East Coast. I found a wrestling school in Ohio in the summer of 1998 and ended up going there. Ended up turning out to be a pretty poor wrestling school, but I made my way to Les Thatcher's training camp in Cincinnati, Ohio, and started working on the independent scene. And little by little, I started to meet different people, and I ended up networking and finding a good assortment of independent promoters and wrestlers to work with. And now I've been to Europe 12 or 13 times. I got to do a tour of Japan. I've wrestled in 25 states, something like that, something not too bad. And I've been able to make a living off of professional wrestling for the last 3 or 4 years, so I've been pretty fortunate.
How hard is that to make a living off of professional wrestling?
It's very hard. Fortunately, I don't have that many expenses, but the money that I make on the shows and from selling merchandise really helps out a lot. But it's really, wrestling's really fickle. It goes up and it goes down. Sometimes I'll have a lot of shows, sometimes I'll have none. So it's definitely very hard to make a living, especially at the independent level when you're not under a contract to anyone, when you don't have any guaranteed money. So. Is that going to be a problem, or is that?
I'm hearing the music a little bit. So I'll ask you that one question again. How hard is it for a pro wrestler to make it to make a living?
Especially on the independent level, it's very difficult to make a living. Promoters, a lot of promoters don't really promote their shows, therefore they don't bring in a lot of people, therefore they don't have a lot of money to pay the wrestlers. So I've been very fortunate in the fact that I found a nice assortment of guys to work for, that I can make a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, and help increase my name so that other promoters are willing to pay me a little bit more. And right now I am a head trainer at a wrestling school on the East Coast, and that definitely helps out a bit. So I've got income from that. I have shows here and there. I go to Europe every so often, so it's really hard to I worked pretty hard to get where I am now. Not that I'm anywhere really big, but I'm enough to make a bit of a comfortable living and pay my rent, pay my bills.
You've wrestled in Europe a lot. How's the wrestling business over there different from here? Fans?
It's a lot of it's different and a lot of it's the same, if that makes any sense, because independent wrestling now is very internet driven. There's a lot of people online that follow wrestling. They follow shows. That's the reason that a lot of these people know about wrestling is because they follow it on the internet. There are some promotions in Europe that have a very strong internet base. but you have a lot of old school promotions that have a lot of casual fans, a lot of the people that still, believe in wrestling or may not necessarily believe it, but they don't follow it every week on television, but they come out to see the big shows. Wrestling used to be very big in Germany. They used to have 100-night tournaments in Hanover where they would have wrestling every night for 100 nights, and they would draw every single night. It's just, it was part of their culture. Now it's down to maybe a 10-day tournament every year, and there's a big fan base in Europe for wrestling, but if they don't know about the shows, they're not going to come.
What do you feel is the biggest challenge for an indie wrestler nowadays?
I would say probably, this may not be correct, but I think the biggest challenge is to stand out. There's so many talented guys now. There are guys that can do any move, any move possible, any type of aerial maneuver, any type of power move. There are guys that have great physiques, guys that are chiseled, guys that are go to the gym, live in the gym basically. There's guys that have the charisma, have the personality. So when you're up against all that, it's really hard to create a little niche for yourself, something, some kind of identity, so that people will be able to tell you apart from these other guys. So I'd say for an independent wrestler coming into the business, it's definitely very hard to make a name for yourself and become known, and not just another guy, another wrestler, another guy lost in the shuffle.
Like you've worked for a lot of promotions. Has there ever been a time where you were there's always like horror stories of like shady promoters? Like, do you have a story like that or something that's happened to you?
Fortunately, I've been pretty decent. I've had a lot of guys, screw me on my payoff. They tell you they're going to give you this much, they don't. Or the thing that I hate the most probably is people that cancel the shows last minute. I understand every now and again it's understandable. Sometimes there's a good excuse, but it happens a lot. You've got this weekend planned up. Thursday. Let's say for instance, Thursday I'm gonna go do a show in West Virginia, and then after that I'm gonna swing through Pittsburgh and do a show there, and then I'm gonna go out to the Midwest and do a show in Indiana or Illinois and catch something in Michigan on the way back. Now that's a hell of a tour. That's 4 days. That's probably a little over 2,000 miles. But what happens when you're planning for this and you're budgeting for this, and all of a sudden the Illinois show gets canceled or the Michigan show gets canceled? That really throws everything off, and you end up coming home with a lot less money than you planned, and it's just a wasted day. If you knew the show was going to be canceled, you could have looked elsewhere and found another booking. And it just, it's just bad business. A lot of people get rubbed the wrong way, and they don't end up working for people again because they have a bad reputation. I've had, when I first broke into the business, I'd been wrestling about a year, and there was a guy that paid everybody in checks, and of course the checks bounced, and a lot of people didn't get their money. Fortunately, I ended up getting my money, so it's not really that bad of a story for me. But, it's just things you have to deal with when you're in the business.
Stop this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think like indie wrestlers should form a union, or?
I think they should, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. It would definitely be nice to have like benefits and whatnot, but I don't really know the specifics of it, but I don't really think it's feasible. I don't think in most markets that independent wrestling is profitable enough to be able to support something like that. And there's not a lot of trust in professional wrestling, especially the business aspect of it. It's very hard to find like good true friends. So I think it was like, didn't Ventura try to start a union back in the day, and Hogan wouldn't support him or whatever, and it started problems with them. But I don't know. It would be nice if something like that were possible, but I really don't see it happening.
What's your most memorable matches? Like you said, you had a 90-something minute match with CM Punk.
Mm-hmm. Memorable? I'd say the 93-minute match was definitely my most memorable match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match with a 90-minute time limit. We ended up tied at the 90-minute mark, so we went into like 2.5 minutes of overtime. So it was definitely an experience. It wasn't a perfect match by any means. Both of us have gotten a lot better since then. So, but just the fact that we went out there and did it, and not necessarily just the fact that we did it, but the fact that the crowd was entertained, and the live crowd there for the last 10 minutes of the match were standing on their feet, and that was a very, something I'm very proud of. It's a big accomplishment. Going to Japan was a great experience, and something I'll always remember. If, God forbid, I never get to go back, it's something I'll always remember. Going to Europe, and there's a group I work for in Europe called WXW, and they have a really unique atmosphere. They run shows in a nightclub, and it's such a confined atmosphere that the fans are right at ringside, like with their hands on the apron. And I maintained quite a bit of popularity over there, over the past few years, and they really get into the match, and it really makes it, something, a really crazy experience. And anybody that has wrestled there in that environment will agree that it's just an awesome experience to be in there, with all these, people from another country, slamming their hands down on the mat and cheering for the match. It's a really, really cool thing, something I'll really remember.
Have you ever had any serious injuries?
I've had quite a few small injuries, some nothing very serious. I haven't, had to take a lot of time off for anything too serious. I've had, numerous back problems. You land on your back all the time, and my lower back gives me problems every now and again. I have a problem with one of my ankles, a separated shoulder, concussion, nothing. I've been pretty lucky, but it's just the risk you take. You go in there and you know how to protect yourself, but you can never be 100% sure that you're going to be protected or be safe, or it could be the littlest thing that goes wrong, and next thing you know, you can't walk very well the next day.
Who in the wrestling business do you look up to, like, as a mentor and idol?
As you can see my t-shirt right now, this man, Tracy Smothers, is a guy I definitely consider a mentor. He's been everywhere, he's done everything. He's wrestled for all the main promotions. He's wrestled in numerous countries, and to this day, he'll go into a locker room and he'll sit with, guys that are inexperienced, guys that he doesn't even know, and he'll relate stories, and he's just a great guy, a class act. He knows a lot about the business, and he's not afraid to share it, and he gives back to the business. That's something that a lot of the veterans, a lot of the experienced guys don't do. I don't know whether they're just, maybe they have a grudge because they think they earned their way in, and they think these young guys haven't, and they don't want to share it. But Tracy's definitely not like that. He helps out. Fortunately, I got to get to know Chris Candido pretty well in the last few weeks before he passed away, and he was an awesome guy. He was just a great guy. He sat with us 2 nights in a row and told stories for 4 or 5 hours, and just the advice that he was giving us, the stories he was telling, he was just a real class act, a great guy. And when I heard the news that he passed, it was really shocking and really hard, because we had just gotten to know him. I've known him for a couple years, but I didn't really know him on that level where he was such a kind guy to give advice and tell stories. He didn't have to do that, but he was really a great guy. I just want to be successful. I want to be respected, and I just want to continue to have fun. I love wrestling, and like I said earlier, I want to do it as long as I can.
How about this, like, to a lighter note, like ribs in the wrestling business? Like, have you ever had a serious rib pull on you, or did you ever get somebody good?
Haven't had anything too serious happen to me, fortunately. I've had my boots glued to walls. I've had stuff hidden of mine. I was doing shows in Charlestown, Indiana for quite a while for Ian Rotten's IWA Mid-South promotion. And we used to run every Wednesday and Saturday. And we had a tournament on a Saturday. And the guys, I'm not quite sure who it was. I think it was either it was a combination of Adam Pearce, Colt Cabana, and CM Punk. They put a toad in my gear bag. Went home, got my plastic bag with my gear out, washed it, threw it back in the plastic bag, zipped it back up, so then the next Wednesday I opened my bag, opened my gear, and then out comes the toad. So they all thought it was hilarious, and You know, of course, you know, all the jokes came in about, you know, Hero doesn't wash his gear, it stinks, you know, he kept the, you know, the frog in there or whatever. And it was surprising that it actually lived, you know, there's all kinds of toad shit in my bag, I guess, but that was pretty funny at the time. I've seen all kinds of different stuff happen. It's pretty funny, you know. Some people take things a little too far, but as long as it's in good humor and it doesn't take it too far, I think ribs are pretty entertaining and, you know, something that keep us sane on the road when we, you know, don't see our families or friends or whatever for weeks or months at a time.
Where do you see the wrestling business like 5 years from now?
Well, where I see it isn't necessarily where I want to see it. You know, I'd like, you know, whether it be TNA or another group, I'd like to see somebody come in and become another top promotion so that, you know, if there's no competition, there's no creativity, and, you know, there's less spots for guys to wrestle. And I'd like to see wrestling, you know, swing back up in popularity and, you know, get some better ratings on TV, get some better buy rates in pay-per-view, and, you know, just, you know, increase fun and you know, business for everybody.
And what's the wrestling business like for an indie wrestler like yourself trying to move up to the next level, get on TV? Like, there's not many options. Like, what's it like?
Yeah, there definitely aren't many options. You have to have a steady income, whether it be a part-time job or a full-time job, or, you know, you have to make enough wrestling to be able to do this. It's definitely hard. You have to make a lot of sacrifice. I moved from Dayton, Ohio in fall of 2001, and unfortunately since then I hardly ever see people that I used to go to school with. You know, I don't see my parents that often now. I live like 8 hours away from my parents, and, you know, I'd like to be able to see them, but, you know, unfortunately because of my business, you know, I have to make a living on my own, and I don't get to see my parents, I don't get to see my friends. You can't really live a luxurious lifestyle unless you're making good money, and I don't necessarily make good money, but I make enough to get by.
Is there any questions that I should ask you about? Like, what's a question that you would think a wrestler should be asked in a documentary like this? I always ask that to people.
Yeah, I guess a question I would like to answer, and a question I think should be asked is it worth it? You know, you go out there and you damage your body, and, you know, for little to no pay sometimes, you know, no guaranteed, no benefits, nothing, you know, is it worth it? And to me, it's completely worth it, because, you know, I may go out there and may jack up my back a little bit or whatever, but that adrenaline rush that you get when you're in the ring, and you can manipulate the crowd and you can get them to react a certain way that you want them to, or, you know, just the camaraderie of all the other guys in the locker room that you become friends with, guys from all over, guys from, you know, 10 different states or 5 different countries, you know, that you can become really good friends with and have this bond with, you know, that makes it worth it, you know. It's just, if I wasn't wrestling right now, I have no clue what I'd be doing, but thankfully I found wrestling, and, you know, thankfully wrestling's been good to me. So is it worth it? I definitely think it's worth it.
That's good.
Okay, cool.